Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Part 2, Two Avatars. We're going to read from chapter 32 today, Lord Kapila's final instructions. Kapila explains how various yoga practitioners attain different destinations and finally summarizes his instructions. Kapila returned in the late afternoon to find his mother pacing back and forth on the veranda. She did not greet him with her customary warmth. Seeming distracted and anxious, when they were both seated, he noticed how her hands fidgeted nervously on her lap. He smiled reassuringly. "What is troubling you, mother?" Still disturbed by the news from her sister, Devahuti said, "You have vividly described the terrible consequences experienced by attached householders who do not follow religious principles. What happens to those who do execute their religious duties?" Verses 1 and 2, Kapila said, "Householders who perform religious rituals with material motives achieve only temporary benefit. They must therefore execute those rites repeatedly to fulfill their desires for worldly gain and sense gratification. Preoccupied with sensual activities, they make no time to hear about, glorify, pray to or worship me because they are interested in material prosperity. They worship the gods and forefathers but not me." Verses 3 and 4. They are elevated to the moon planet after death. There they drink the juice of celestial soma plant, which enhances one's capacity for sense enjoyment. But when the merits of their sacrifices are finished, they return to the earth. Even the planets which such materialistic people are attracted to, including the heavenly planets like the moon, are destroyed when Lord Sankarshan, who lies on Anantashesh, goes to sleep. Verse 5 and 6, intelligent people do not therefore desire to enjoy the fruits of their work. Rather, they do their duty to satisfy me. Thus, they are freed from the influence of the three modes of nature and experience peace. Even if they are householders, they have no desire to exploit their family or friends for sense gratification. They do not think anything or anyone belongs to them, nor do they demand respect or service from others. They always consider themselves my eternal servants and therefore easily attain my spiritual abode. Verses 7 to 9, these liberated souls worship the complete Supreme Person who is the proprietor of the material and spiritual worlds and the cause of the creation and destruction of the cosmos. They directly approach Lord Narayan through the illuminated path of the sun planet. However, those yogis who worship my Hiranyagarbha expansion remain on one of the higher planets within this material world until the end of Brahma's life. At the time they do attain my spiritual abode along with Brahma, who on dissolving the universe with its 7 material layers enters the eternal spiritual world. Verses 10 and 11, those who try to become detached by practicing the yogic breathing exercises, pratyahar, dharana and dhyan can also attain liberation. However, if they meditate on the universal form as Brahma's body, they will merge with them. If Brahma achieves liberation, they too will be liberated. But because they are not Vishnu's devotees, they will take birth again in the next creation. However, my dear mother, you do not need to worry about any of this. You are already a perfect devotee, as you always think of me as your beloved son, for I am the Lord in everyone's heart, whose glories you have heard. Just continue in this way. Verses 12 to 15, without such pure love for me, one will undoubtedly harbor self-interest. Therefore, even if they be Brahma or an elevated sage like Sanat Kumar or an illustrious philosopher like Marichi, they will take birth again in the next creation. Such great personalities may perfectly execute their duties and consequently attain Mahavishnu at the time of universal annihilation. However, if they have not cultivated a loving relationship with me, during the next creation they will return in the same forms and positions as before. This is due to lingering material contamination such as thinking themselves independent doers or desiring to merge with me. Only one who loves me either as master, friend, child, or beloved is completely united with me in their interests. Verses 16 and 17, those devoid of love for me are addicted to material enjoyment. They diligently perform their duties, but with the desire to enjoy the results. Such persons are impelled by the mode of passion. They are always anxious due to their agitated senses. They continuously pursue sense gratification, worshipping the forefathers. They strive to improve the economic condition of their family, community, or nation. Verses 18 to 20, such seemingly pious people act religiously only because they believe it is the best way to attain prosperity and material enjoyment. However, they have no attraction to hearing about the transcendental pastimes of Krishna and his incarnations, which alone can free one from all suffering. By the Lord's supreme order, such persons are condemned to repeated birth and death. They can be compared to stool-eating hogs because, neglecting to hear about Krishna's pastimes, they prefer to hear about the abominable activities of materialists. Although they ascend to the Pitri planet and enjoy heavenly delights, they later take birth on earth in their previous families and continue their materialistic pursuits. Devahuti wondered how, having attained such an elevated destination as Pitrilok, one again returns to the earth planet. Verse 21, Kapila said, In time their pious credits are exhausted, and by Krishna's arrangements they are obliged to return here again. For the same reason, even here we see that a very important person will suddenly lose his opulence. Devahuti thought of her brother-in-law Daksha, who, despite enjoying great opulence and prestige, had recently lost everything, including even his head. Thinking of her sister Prasuti, she sighed sadly. Verses 22 and 23, Kapila spoke sympathetically. My dear mother, that is why I advise you to take shelter of Krishna. His lotus feet are worth worshipping. Accept this instruction and serve him with loving devotion. You will thus be fixed in transcendence beyond material desires. By always hearing about Krishna, glorifying him, remembering him, praying to him, and offering everything for his pleasure, anyone can easily attain transcendental knowledge and detachment from material life, as well as ultimately realizing their eternal spiritual identity. Devahuti looked thoughtful. What were the symptoms of one who had attained transcendental knowledge and detachment from material life? Verse 24, Kapila said, such an advanced devotee is equal in the face of both agreeable and disagreeable events. Remaining fixed in service to Krishna in all situations, Devahuti wondered how it was possible to always remain undisturbed. Kapila said, the advanced devotee with transcendental intelligence is convinced he is not the body, but Krishna's eternal servant. He knows his happiness depends on pleasing Krishna rather than anything material. Unaffected by external circumstances, he focuses on pleasing the Lord. By always endeavoring to satisfy Krishna, he is elevated to transcendence, where he enjoys life as much as the Lord himself. Devahuti asked if Gyan and Ashtanga yogis who renounce material enjoyment also attain transcendence. Verses 26 and 27, Kapila said, Krishna, the Supreme Person, is the complete transcendental reality. However, different yoga practitioners perceive him to a greater or lesser degree. By practicing Jnana Yoga, one can realize his impersonal Brahman feature. The Ashtanga yogis realized his supersoul feature, residing in all hearts as the impartial witness and sanction giver. Only the devotees who hear and chant about Krishna can achieve an eternal loving relationship with him. although they attain different levels of transcendental realization. Yogis from all three disciplines agree that one must become detached from material enjoyment. All of these processes can help one achieve this. How do they become detached? I have heard some philosophers say that one becomes aloof from matter by seeing it as an illusion. Illusion, is that correct? Verse 28, no, this is false. Everything is my divine energy, including this world. But those averse to hearing from me cannot understand this truth because they rely on speculation, accepting only the undifferentiated Brahman as true. They think all variety is illusion. However, the devotees see my diverse energies at work even in this world. That gives rise to true detachment. Verse 29, the total material energy or the Mahat Tattva manifests from me. From it I brought forth the false ego, the three modes of nature, the five material elements, individual consciousness, 11 senses, and different material bodies. Just as individual bodies develop due to the presence of the spirit soul, similarly the universe develops due to my presence as a super soul. Verse 30, this perfect knowledge can only be realized by regularly engaging in my devotional service. Giving up worldly association, devotees constantly immerse themselves in either hearing and chanting about me, praying to and remembering me, or performing their duties for my pleasure. Their only motive is to please me. By such devotion, they gradually achieve samadhi, full absorption in thought of me. They have faith that by prioritizing these devotional activities, all their subsidiary duties will be fulfilled. Kapila paused. The sun had set and darkness had descended on the veranda, the air filled with the chirping of crickets. Kapila looked affectionately at his mother, her face illuminated by the lanterns her servants had brought out. His instructions were almost complete and he would soon leave. Desiring to ensure his mother had fully grasped his teaching, he began to summarize them. My respectable mother, a few days ago you asked me to explain Prakriti. The material energy, and Purusha, spirit, the Lord of that energy, and the relationship. In reply to your question, I have explained Jnana Yoga. By the process for realizing these truths, by this practice of cultivating knowledge, one rises above the modes of nature and eventually realizes that Krishna is everything. He thus takes guidance from the Lord. By hearing from him, one may also take directly to such devotional service. Either way, the goal is to realize Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devahuti pressed her fingers together in thought. Krishna was surely the goal of bhakti, but she was still confused about Jnana and Ashtanga Yoga. But these also directed towards the Lord. Verse 33, Kapila said, the single object of all spiritual practice is Krishna. However, he is seen differently depending on one's process. Consider this example. Kapila pointed to a glass of milk standing on the nearby table. Milk is one, but different senses perceive its different features. To the eye, its white substance. To the nose, it is something fragrant. To the touch, it is cool. And to the tongue, it is a delicious food. In the same way, according to the scriptural directions followed, one will perceive Krishna in different ways. Those on the path of Karma Yoga see him different as the awarder of heavenly pleasure. Those practicing Jnana Yoga see him as Brahman, and while the Ashtanga Yogis perceive him as the Super Soul. Only the Bhaktas can know him in his full feature as Krishna, the Supreme Person, just as the tongue alone can properly know milk. Verses the Devahuti wondered why the Vedas presented different paths and not just bhakti. Verses 34 to 36, Kapila said, the scriptures give various processes for various kinds of people. Prescribed duties, sacrifice and charity are performed by householders who generally desire elevation to heaven. Some retire from family life and adopt the order of Vanprastha. They practice austerity and study scripture to make philosophical research to realize the spiritual nature. Study of scripture starts in one's youth when one lives with the spiritual master as a celibate student, brahmachari. In the last phase of life, one accepts sannyas to fully control the mind and senses. Often such sannyasis practice Ashtanga Yoga with the aim of realizing the supersoul in their hearts. However, to achieve any of these desired results, one must also perform Bhakti Yoga. The specific effect of bhakti is that one simultaneously cultivates attachment to Krishna and detachment from the matter. Gradually, the expert bhakti yogi realizes the presence of the Lord both in this world and in his spiritual abode. Verses 37 and 38, Dear Mother, I have explained bhakti yoga in the three modes of nature and in transcendence. I have also described how the conditioned souls are suffering under the influence of imperceptible time. I have also explained at length how such living beings forget their spiritual identity and suffer greatly, not knowing the consequences of their work or how to get out of their misery. Tears of compassion pricked Devahuti's eyes. Her son's powerful instructions had soothed her heart, and she wanted to share them with such unfortunate souls. She thought again of her sister Prasuti, her brother Uttanpad, and her brother-in-law Daksha. They and their dependents, along with all conditioned souls, would greatly benefit from these teachings. Divining her thoughts, Kapila cautioned her, not everyone can understand these lessons, my dear mother. She looked at him quizzically. Even she, simple woman, had understood. Who would fail to understand something so clearly explained? Verses 39 and 40, Kapila said, those who are envious, faithless, addicted to sinful behavior, hypocritical or proud of their material opulence will never accept these teachings, nor will people who are too greedy or overly attached to family life. Certainly those who envy Krishna's devotion or who deny his existence cannot understand. Verses 41 to 42, these instructions should be delivered to the faithful who respect the spiritual master, who hate no one but are friendly to all, and who are keen to make progress in devotional service. One who has personally mastered these teachings may instruct students whose only aim in life is to love Krishna, who are pure in body and mind and detached from anything incompatible with Krishna's service. Last verse of this chapter, verse 43, if anyone with such faith and devotion meditates on me, hears about me, or describes my pastimes, then they will surely go back home to my eternal transcendental abode. And with this, we conclude our chapter 32, Lord Kapila's last instructions. And next time we will read the last chapter of Canto 3, which is chapter 33, Devahuti attains perfection. Thank you for joining. Please take care. Hariam Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.